Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, well, first of all, everyone should recognize our guest. She's Emily Schubert. She's coming back on the podcast to give us an update on what she's been up to. And geez, it's been I think the last time we talked, it was like a year that we did the last podcast. So yeah, it seems like it's been like 10 years. So I mean, just how the time slows down, especially during the pandemic and all that other stuff. But most importantly, yeah, she's just on here to, give us an update. And most importantly, she's our current guest. Once again, Emily, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta ask this because I ask this every damn time. What is the weather like today in your neck of the woods?
The weather is pretty hot today. I think we reached a high of about 90 degrees.
What has this off season been like for you when it comes to, just the bulking and then the cutting down? Because obviously I follow your Instagram and, you post on it daily. And that's the one thing that I like about you is that you're really honest and upfront about your off season where most people hide those photos, but you don't. What has this whole off season been like for you?
Yeah, so off season actually was really quite enjoyable this year. Coming off of how the season ended, obviously I was in really good mood and pretty much in the best place possible going into this next upcoming year. So I had a great mindset. My coach and I touched base. We knew exactly what we wanted to work on this upcoming year, and then from then on, it was really just diligent work. Day in day out, kind of like a Groundhog's Day. Planning each and every day around my gym sessions, getting the most out of them so that I can bring a better and more complete package to the stage this year.
And have you mixed anything up with this prep as opposed to your last preps? Because this sport is always about, like constantly growing and evolving. How has this last prep been different from your other preps?
I think the biggest difference this year is having a set date as far as a show date. Last year, I was kind of in a sticky situation where, I had aimed for a show originally, that show got pushed back. Then I aimed for another show, that show got canceled actually. So I was kind of in that situation where it was like, I don't know how far out I am from a show. So this year it's a little bit less stressful in that sense. Knowing, this is the game plan, this is how much time we have. So it's kind of kept things a little bit more smoother. And to me, being a very controlling type person, it's really nice to have control over that show date.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a control freak myself, especially with these podcasts. I mean, don't even get me started on how many edits I do for these damn things. But it's if people saw it, they'd be like, "Oh my god, you do way too much for this." But what is one body part that you think that you've improved on the most since we last had you on?
Yeah, so I think this past year we really worked on bringing up my upper body and giving me a little bit more density up top. So we had 2 back days a week, kind of really hammering that part of my body. And then we also had a lot of arm and delt work mixed in there, sprinkled in there for just more volume throughout the week of my training. So those have been really areas of focus. My leg training, actually, we really only have one hard leg day a week. The other one's kind of a secondary, just kind of hitting where I missed possibly on that full leg day. So it's really simple lower body training, just hopefully, developing my upper body a little bit more to match the lower body.
Let's see the guns. Let's see how you've improved.
Yeah.
Good God, yeah, yeah, she's definitely put on Jesus. That's. I remember the last time we had you on. Yeah, you've definitely put on a lot of size. So yeah, she's going to be going places in the bodybuilding world. And I mean, with the nutrition too, because that's always something that's the one thing that I hate the most about the sport is the nutrition aspect. But how have you changed up your nutrition this off season?
Yeah, so off season, this was actually the highest my food has really ever been with my coach. So it was awesome to know that my body was handling the food not only more but also properly. So it was being put to use, we'll say. But other than that, I really had a free meal a week. Um, I felt full, I felt fed throughout off season, so it was really actually quite relaxing to kind of just not really focus so much on what I was looking like on the outside, but really just how I was performing in the gym. So obviously, a little bit more focused on just week to week, making sure I'm recovering enough, getting enough sleep in the off season, and just being able to get the most out of those training sessions.
So would you say that dealing with the post show blues was a lot easier this off season?
Oh yeah. Honestly, I think as I compete year after year, it gets easier and easier. Naturally, that first kind of, I would say like a 4 week period after your shows are over with, it's a little bit saddening at times because you see your body just like naturally just like getting softer. And after working so hard to get to that point of like being its best, I think every competitor deals with it, but it's just the amount of time gets shorter and shorter as you mature as an athlete.
Yeah, which that's good that it happens to you because I mean I have some guests where they're like, yeah, it doesn't get any better, but at least with you it does because yeah, that is the one aspect of the sport that me myself I'm just like I would just be so weird just like looking at that physique that you have on stage and then like 3 weeks later you're like, oh my god, I don't even look like I've ever worked out a day in my life. But just the mentality of this sport too. I mean, it's like you said, this is a very like sort of type A personality sport where I mean it is a lot more you have to be a controlled person, you have to have everything down pat, but with COVID and everything that's been going on with like either shows being canceled or just the delays, how did you deal with all that mentally, being that I mean that's totally goes up against your personality type?
Yeah, so actually, I was extremely fortunate and blessed that COVID really didn't affect my personal training schedule. I was able to get into a complete gym the entire time, the entire period. So I feel for the athletes that didn't have that, because I really do feel like I was truly blessed in that situation. But as far as the COVID lifestyle goes, it's just you wear a mask when you go out in public. For me, my day to day life really didn't change much. Being so that I create my own work schedule, and then I'm able to cater my day around that. My training and my cardio and my meals. So being on any type of COVID situation truly, truly, really didn't impact me that much. So, I really do feel for the athletes out there that it did.
And how long have you been into this prep specifically? What are you like a couple of weeks in, or how long have you been into this cut?
Yeah, so my coach and I started pulling back. We started counting, we should say, at about 30 weeks out. Not to say that really anything changed in that period, but just to mentally know that, hey, we're not really pushing for size right now, but we're going to start catering and getting your body metabolically ready to get into a cut, situation. So from 30 weeks to about probably like 22, it really didn't change much. I just felt like I was training like normal. Um, and then probably at about 20 weeks was when we started to add, cardio a little bit more into it. Diet got a little bit tighter. And then from there on, it's been just a kind of a gradual, very slow pace. My coach likes to take our time, making sure that my body adapts to the least amount that we have to do to it as possible. Trying to keep the stress down on the entire body system.
What has your relationship with cardio been like this prep?
Oh, I don't know if I want to say it because my coach might hear it, but this is actually the easiest my cardio has ever been.
Oh,
This
she just jinxed it, everyone. She just jinxed it.
I know. He'll probably see that and be like, we'll change it then." But no, right now I'm really only doing steady state. So for me, I have done steady state and hit, and naturally, hit is just more intense. It's more taxing on the body. So the longest we can avoid that, the better. But right now, it's just steady state. I'm doing a short session on all my training days except leg day, and then naturally a little bit more on my rest days. But according to where I have been before in a prep, this is like extremely light cardio.
Well, and I mean the funny thing about your prep right now is that I mean you're still lifting heavy. I saw your post from earlier today where you're still squatting 300 for like 11 reps or something. So, do you think that you've gained a lot of strength in this off season as well, or is it just the size?
Yeah, it's I would say my training has probably felt like it's been on fire these past probably 2 months. I just feel like I'm connecting really well in the gym. My numbers are staying, if not even rising. A good example is my front squats. These past probably 6 to 8 weeks, I've been actually progressing each week. So to be in a deficit and adding in cardio and things on prep, it's nice to know that I am gaining a little bit of strength here, and naturally not losing it, which is good. But other than that, I mean, the gym sessions have just been nice. I get in there, I get my headphones on, I'm in my own little world, and I get my stuff done. So
Well, and you poor thing, you're wearing like sweaters too and stuff like that in the gym. Do you just do that just for the sweat or something like that? Because I mean, it's like it's 90 degrees here, so if I ever walked outside with a sweater, I mean, I would hate my life.
yeah, I mean, for cardio, I naturally bundle up a little bit. I have full leggings and a hoodie on. But for the gym, I usually go. fully dressed, covered, and then I usually get my heart rate up a little bit. I might walk on the treadmill or, get the heart rate going, and then I do a couple sets into an exercise or two, and then typically by then I'm warmed up. My joints feel loose. I'm in the zone. My body's warmed up, so I feel like then the layers start to come off because the gym does get pretty toasty here in the summer.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I mean, 2 hours after I'm done talking to you, I gotta wait before I can do my cardio outside because for me, it's gotta be at least, like, in the 70s, and it's gotta be later at night, there's no people out, so, yeah, I mean, when I see people with sweater and I see some people, like, even going, like, at 100 degrees, I saw a guy walking in, like, a Dairy Queen with a sweater on, and I was like, "What is going on with people these days?" And I see your Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I mean, it must really work really well for the sweat," but, I mean, one thing that, is always changing and evolving that we've talked about the last time is posing. Have you changed up your routine at all from this last year that you competed?
Yeah, I would say as far as posing, I'm really just trying to fine tune everything. And I think now it's, you know, I practice my check-in pictures, which are just the mandatory poses. Every time I check in, with my coach, and now that we're checking in more often, I'm naturally getting more practice in those. So I'm getting a lot more like nitpicky with just tiny, tiny details on those mandatory poses. So just like fine tuning the ever smallest details. And then as far as like routine posing goes, I think it's more so just further discovering who I am as a competitor on stage and kind of the vibe I want to give off. I think in today's bodybuilding world, the routine work is getting more and more and more built up. And I applaud it. I think it's really cool. But you still want to stick to kind of the traditional sense of the sport. And that is really, truly presenting your body to the best of your abilities, and really showing your strengths off. So that's kind of what I focus on when I'm creating a posing routine, or an individual presentation, something like that.
Well, I had to stop you because we had a dog walk in the background, and it's one of the cutest dogs I've ever seen. What's your dog's name? He just
That's
walked
Tucker.
away.
Yeah, that's Tucker. He's getting old, so he's
Yeah.
slowing down a little bit here, especially with the heat. He just
Uh,
kind of naps all day.
oh, our dog, yeah, she's only like 4 years old, but she's the little Cavachon that barks at everything that moves, and then she just rolls over as soon as you walk up to her because she knows that the fight's over. She's just her bark is 100 times worse than her bite. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm still working on my dog compilation that's gonna be coming out soon of all the dogs that I've had on the podcast and doing that because I am like one of the biggest dog lovers out there. But I mean, back into your bodybuilding, just with you winning your last show, do you remember what the feedback was for what you needed to improve on from the judges, even though you won the show?
Yeah, so feedback, I did present my stage pictures to Gary Udit, who, if you guys aren't familiar, is from Pittsburgh, where I'm from. So he's one of the kind of the head judges I have known personally. So I sent my pictures into him to kind of get, the most personal feedback I could. And he was just like, you guys were on. You hit the nail on the head. You peaked perfectly. I think if anything, it's just fine tuning that evenness, proportion. I think it's really important in women's physique, this day and age. So just focusing more on evening out the top and the bottom.
And I mean, especially with physique being, as ever changing and it has been over the years, how much attention do you try to pay to what other people are looking like? Just because, like, the one thing that I've always found sort of weird but fascinating about bodybuilding is that, like, if you were so much more like muscular than everyone else on stage, you might not win just because everyone else has a different look than you. So how much attention do you pay to the other competitors as opposed to, just sort of realizing what the vibe is overall for what they want to look like? Because like with physique, I mean, I've said this a million times. If you were to have competed 10 years ago looking like the way you look right now, you'd be in the bodybuilding category just because it's always evolving. So how much attention do you pay to sort of the ever changing nature of the category?
Yeah, so I know personally, I do watch the shows in all the divisions. I think it's phenomenal to even get on stage. So I do have mad respect for all the athletes out there, but I do pay particular attention to my division. And I have learned particularly as a professional, you want to really focus on the year of the show that you're competing in. Take a look at who's placing in that first call out. How are they moving the bodies around the stage? You can even learn what each judging panel tends to look for. So that's, what I'm doing this year is really paying attention to every pro show that's going on and seeing who's placing in that top six. Are they looking for shape over conditioning? Are they looking for femininity over muscularity? Things like that. So I'm just kind of seeing what's trending, So I see that as like studying the competition, I guess you could say. And also just supporting the sport, being a fan, keeping attention to what's happening this day.
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, I was in Omaha for the 4th of July right before the Omaha Pro, and I had to leave because I had to go back to my job. Otherwise, I would have stayed and saw that. But out of all the studying that you've did of the shows and whatnot, what do you think, without giving too much away, what do you think has been the overall vibe when it comes to like the musculature, the femininity, or where do you think it's sort of leaning at this year as opposed to maybe last year?
Yeah, so I think for women's physique, shape is one of the main things that they're looking for. A tight waist, nice defined lats, and then of course a nice quad sweep to give off that X frame. I think that places really well amongst shows. And then on top of that, just conditioning. You don't want to be too conditioned to the point where you're losing femininity, but you also do want to be conditioned enough to show detail and line work and just showing off the physique at its, I don't want to say best stage, but at the closest to perfection as you could possibly get. So I think they do reward conditioning.
Is it hard to sort of find that balance between, like you said, that conditioning, that it becomes sort of unfeminine where you get super conditioned? Because I mean, when you're doing your cardio at the end, and especially the depletions that you do before the show, I mean, you're gonna get very very conditioned. But is it been hard at all to sort of realize what that boundary is, because it is changing every year? And let's, like, if I did so much cardio as like what the bodybuilders did, I mean, it's just hard, I think, for a lot of people to find that balance, especially people who aren't that familiar with the sport.
Yeah, so I really think it comes down to, I always say it, but I think shape rules. Um, it's important to build a right framework so that when you do cut down, it does show the musculature and the shape that you want. So I think training in order to preserve a feminine shape um, will obviously result in a better package come show day. That's why I think really enforcing, a tight waist, keeping that under control, keeping core work in your routines, and just kind of making sure that that always looks nice and presentable, I guess. So just making sure that you are training the best for your body shape that you want to get for stage.
I mean, the worst mistake I ever made personally in my training was that I just did so many sit-ups that, like, and people don't realize, when you do enough of those, your abs are gonna they're gonna bulge out a little bit. Like, they're not just gonna like tone and sleek down. Like, they're a muscle too, so they're gonna get bigger and bigger as you do it. So it got to the point where, like, yeah, it looked like I had a little bit of a belly on me, but it was like a six pack, and it was just because I was doing like thousands of crunches every couple of days and stuff. So what do you do to help keep that frame down? Because I mean, yeah, if I could redo my whole entire journey from the start again, the first thing I do is I would do less crunches, I would do more oblique work. But what do you like to do in order to keep that frame? Because yeah, they always want sort of that like that V, and it's just. I mean, especially, well, I have a guy body type too, so I mean, it's just flat as an arrow. But still, I mean, do you do anything special that sort of maintain that? Because you know, that shape sometimes can be sort of counterintuitive to when it comes to heavy training.
Yeah, so I think it really, once again, comes down to training. Years ago, I would train more like a power lifter, to the sense where I was doing deadlifts and rack pulls and back squats, where I'm really loading up that midsection. And what my coach and I really discovered was that it was causing me to look thick in the midsection, and really taking off that balance of like an X frame, especially when I would turn to my profile. So I think changing up my training to now where you could say it's more so bodybuilder style. I don't have many heavy, abrasive compound lifts. I'm not deadlifting. I'm not back squatting anymore. I don't have a bench press in there really, and I don't have any deadlifts, no rack pulls, nothing really to put force on my lower back. So that's really been an area where I see could be a mistake for a lot of competitors. And then as far as core training does go, it's a muscle group just like any other muscle group. So if you train it to grow, essentially you're going to get that thick midsection. So you do, in my opinion, have to train the core a little bit differently than you would a quad focus day or a back focus day. So for me, my core training, most days it's really just body weight. And I'm keeping those reps a little bit higher rep and just focusing on each controlled repetition being exactly perfect, and executed properly. And then really taking out any major weighted core, especially obliques, because once again, it's going to give you that blocky shape. So really, any weighted I do is just forward. If anything, it's just like a simple weighted crunch, and then I bring the repetitions down to more so about like a 10 to 15 range. So lower reps, and just really just adding just ever so slightly the weights to them.
Well, thank you so much for saying that because I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to people who just think that if they do a lot of cardio, they're going to get abs just because they think they're going to lose all of that. It's like, oh my God, no. It's like, yeah, I just want to strangle this and just be like, you don't understand that that's not going to get you abs. You like actually have to work them. And for not doing bench press too, because I'm sorry, but that's a little overrated for me. I mean, it's like, yeah, you can still get a nice chest without having to do that. And plus it's one of those workouts too, especially being a bodybuilder where you could get hurt and stuff. So it's one of those, it's a lot safer to sort of not do that. So yeah, that's another spiel that I could go off on. But I mean, as you're getting closer to these shows, how much more do you usually, or how much more do you think maybe your cardio is going to get amped up? Or when it comes to your nutrition, do you have like a set plan, or do you just go weekly by the ear of what your coach is going to tell you?
Yeah, so I mean, my coach has full control. So, he's telling me what I'm eating, what I'm doing cardio wise, training. So he has full run of the show. As far as going forward, I will say, he and I have worked for almost 4 years together now. We've been through this is going to be our fourth prep season together, and I will say up until this point, I haven't felt pushed yet. Um, I know where we have gone in order to bring what we have to stage. And I'll say right now, we're not even close to really, turning up the gas right now. So we have a lot left in the tank. So I'm really excited, what these next 8 weeks are going to bring and what I can bring to my physique this year on stage.
Yeah, I mean, if she's already looking like that at 8 weeks, I mean, who knows what the finished product is going to be. And I mean, I just can't stress enough how many times people just don't understand that this is a long this is a long period of a sport really when it comes to getting ready for this, and it's just the accumulation of all those workouts where I mean everyone just wants the results yesterday basically, and it's I mean you're just not going to get it with this lifestyle. And I mean the discipline, the dedication is one thing that I think you can sort of take from this sport and carry it into your average everyday life. How do you think that has really carried things on into your life personally? Because I mean once you turn that switch on for prep, that discipline that you have is almost bar none to whatever else you do in life.
Yeah. So the mental side of the sport is actually a really big personal interest of mine. I think it's almost the most important aspect of the sport. So for me, my mental mindset really doesn't change so much from off season to on season. I'm pretty strict in my off season, I would say. Definitely the abnormal amount of strictness. So from that essence, I really don't change. It's just following what my coach changes. So, he once again runs the game. But more so for me, I have to focus on my personal amount of stress and pressure I put on myself. So as I enter a prep, usually I really have to focus on not being such a perfectionist, and understanding that every little tiny detail is not going to be exactly on point, even though I want it to be. And there are going to be days where things don't go according to plan. And it's more so how you handle that, and how you handle your mindset not to shake when those things happen and be your detriment or your downfall to an entire 20-week prep, is my kind of focus. So for me, I'm focusing more so on just keeping myself calm and confident and executing the plan to a T.
Well, like you said, even in your off season, you still have this sort of strict mentality. How are you able to do that? Because for me personally, as soon as I was able to eat something, I would just, pig out and just lose. How do you mentally? Because I know, like, for especially, that's why you're a pro bodybuilder and I'm not. But how mentally do you just focus on that? Because even some of the best bodybuilders on the planet, they struggle with that, and they still, might cave in every once in a while. But how do you deal with that mentally and just say to yourself, like, hey, I can't do this if I want to, get to the goals that I have further down the line?
I am so happy you asked this question, and I think it's really important in the industry these days, especially with social media being out there. Every competitor seems to be posting how their off season's going and kind of their mindset. And what tends to happen is it gets a false idea or a false sense that everything is smooth sailing and everything's great. I feel confident. I feel fantastic. But every competitor goes through it. Then, there's post show blues. It happens. It really does. And this past year, off season, going into it after coming off, those competitions I did have, I told my coach, I need some time. So I took about a week and kind of was a little bit more lenient. I would hit most of my meals, but I did have some free stuff in there, some treats. And it was just more so giving my mental mindset a break, and just letting me be human for a little bit after being so strict and so dialed in for so long. I knew personally, if I didn't give myself a break, I could potentially break. So that was kind of what I didn't want happening going into an Olympia prep this year. So I took a time out and said, "Hey, Derek, my coach." I said, "Hey, Derek, I am telling you this week is my week. I've obviously not been an idiot when it comes to food, but I really took that week and kind of just reset, recouped, recharged. And then when I came home after the trip, after traveling, it was back to my home state and just in my own routine, my own gym, my own kitchen. I got back to it and was pretty much right on track up until prep. So I think every competitor kind of figures out what works for them and what doesn't. Some people are able to snap back to it, after that show night and get 100% on meal plan and be fine. Some people struggle with that, and it takes them, a really bad off season, a really bad rebound to learn that you really do have to control yourself through off season, to an extent. So I think it's just a learning curve and really just a personal preference on how to handle that situation.
Which I'm glad you said that you were able to take that break, because I've had some guests who they don't take that break, and I look at them and I was like, okay, they're just waiting to, like, I can see the ticking time bomb slowly going off in their head, like even as I'm talking to them. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting to see. So, I'm glad that you were able to do that, because yeah, even I've taken breaks from doing the podcast where I even take like a week off or something like that, because yeah, even I can get kerfuffled from all this stuff that's going on. See, I'm trying to use a new word every day, so kerfuffled might have been my word of the day. So I got that out. I got that out of it. But I mean, yeah, especially with yeah, this people just do not understand the mental side of this sport. But on top of the mental side, do you find that, I mean, as you've gotten bigger and bulkier, do you find that you've gotten even more attention from people when it comes to your look than you might have had last year? Because I mean, even though you were a winning bodybuilder last year, I mean, now you look so much bigger that do you find that the attention has gotten up from people just like recognizing you in public, or not even recognize you, but just being like, oh wow, she looks different?
Yeah. So typically I don't really, I dress pretty conservatively if I'm going out in public. But it's funny here, especially with the weather being so warm, I go out in tank tops and just leggings. And it's so funny because now, so further out from show, I get the whole like, oh my gosh, you must be a bodybuilder, or you spend a lot of time in the gym, those kind of comments out when I'm in public. And it's just happening more so further out. So I was getting those comments like, 30 plus weeks out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like, I'm not even prepping yet. So now that I'm getting leaner and more, not natural looking to the average American, you do get a lot of comments, a lot. And it's more so you just have to understand that, like, hey, I'm asking for this. I'm the one that doesn't want to look normal. So I'm just asking to get, the cat calls or the comments or the this or that. So take it more so in a positive light and just be like, hey, I actually do look, you know, good outside of the gym. And it's more so a compliment than anything else. So that's what I tell myself, to just take it with a grain of salt and, laugh, smile, say thank you. Because they really are, meaning it in a good, positive way.
Well, and that's when you come with the greatest comeback of all time, when they say, oh, you look like a bodybuilder. Say, what's bodybuilding?
Yeah.
Or just like, oh, do you work out? And be like, never touched a weight in my life. I just woke
Yeah,
up like
really,
this
I
one
don't know
day.
what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
I mean, I'm just lucky, I guess, and then, yeah. So I used to do that all the time when I was in, much better shape in college. So, and that was always the highlight of my night. People would just come up to me and be like, hey, do you work out? And I'd be like, I go for jogs every once in a while and stuff like that. And just be like, is that working out? Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's definitely hard not to just, like, smile really big because it's like, "Oh my gosh," like, I really do, represent the lifestyle to
Well, and
just a
people also, 99.99% of the people don't even understand how much hard work it is to get to that look that you're at right now. Like they just think that, oh, if she just works out and she just eats healthy, like they don't understand how difficult it is. I mean, because even my brother told me something fascinating where he's not a bodybuilder, but he just works out a lot too. Where it's like the body doesn't want to grow, like the body wants to conserve as much energy as possible and like do all that. So like you basically have to force feed yourself doing all the stuff that you have to do to get big. People don't understand how hard that is. So yeah, if anyone ever came, whenever they'd come up to me, I would also take it as a compliment too, just because it's sort of them sort of realizing that like, hey, we know you work your butt off, even though they don't know like how hard specifically it takes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's why for me, anytime was really great. But I mean, especially in this last year, with being a personal trainer, dealing with clients too. And you said that they weren't affected so much by COVID, but in the overall vibe, of the gyms that you've been to, do you find that there's more people in the gyms now that restrictions have sort of loosened and a lot of people want to lose that COVID weight? Or what has been the situation you think for the gyms in your area?
Yeah, so the gym I train out of now is Powerhouse Gym Pittsburgh. And the owners are actually newer. They took it over right before the holidays. And they have put so much time and effort and money into that gym and really have created such an atmosphere here in Pittsburgh. I can truly say it is the best gym in the burg. So they have taken care of us all and created an environment where we feel safe and allowed to exercise our bodies. So everyone is comfortable there. If you want to wear a mask, if you don't want to wear a mask, it doesn't matter. People don't treat you any differently. And just creating a sense of an area, an environment where you can come and feel safe. So as far as that goes, it's awesome. We get new members all the time, especially when shows are in town. We get weekend passes, people coming through, traveling through. I've actually met and networked with a lot of people that are in the sport and in the industry just these past couple of months with the show season really getting in full swing here. I do know in a month we have North Americans, which is a huge national show. So I'm sure a bunch of competitors and their families and friends are coming through town. So it's just a great environment to kind of be around other people in the sport and the bodybuilding world.
Well, and I know I asked you this last time, but just the amount of change that you've had, it warrants being asked again. I mean, being that you are a personal trainer, I mean, especially when you're around this time of your prep, you're going to get this a lot. I want to get in shape. I just don't want to look like you or yada, yada. They do all that. So how do you deal with that? Because that to me, I mean, I know they don't mean, to be mean about it or something like that, but some people sometimes take it the wrong way. Other people are just like, oh yeah, I totally don't. But how do you deal with that? Because for me too, I'd be like, oh, trust me, you have, about half of the percent of what I do to look like this.
Yeah. So a lot of the clients, I think they do understand that, I do a lot of things to the extreme, and that it is an extreme style of a healthy lifestyle. So I think they do understand that, like, I'm not going to end up looking like you because I'm not eating, the same five foods every day, and I'm not training to the
Which for
same
me, I'd
level.
be like, I'll give you all my money, just make me look like you, basically.
Yeah, unfortunately, that the money actually
Yeah,
doesn't buy the body.
yeah, I
But
know.
if it did, a lot more people would have it. I would tell you. But
Well, I mean, you
um,
could be like that one guy who's the Barbie guy who like does like the synthol stuff,
oh,
or he like does plastic surgery on himself to look good or whatever like that. And I was like, okay, that is just come on, dude. Like, yeah,
too far.
yeah, it's like come on, buddy. And it's like it's like you can tell too. It's like if it would be different if like you couldn't tell, but it's like you could totally tell. It's like yeah, I got like pec implants and stuff like that too. And it's like just do a few
Yeah.
push-ups, buddy. It's like, come on now. So don't even get me started on that. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying too, where it's just like, yeah, it's good that they realize that too, because I mean, the public is so. I mean, as much as I would like the public to be informed about, a lot of things when it comes to health and fitness, they aren't. So it does still shock me to this day, even talking to some people, like how ill-informed they are. But now, I mean, a question that I was dreading asking you, but I have to bring it up because you are from Pittsburgh. How did you deal with the Steelers losing to the freaking Browns in the playoffs? For God's sake.
Yeah. So football, I don't exactly follow too closely. I'll watch it like if my dad has it on. My dad's a really big Packers fan, so our household gets a little bit more excited about the
Get
Packers
the
game
hell
every week.
off my podcast. Vikings fan here, bleed purple and gold.
Yeah, he's like a lifetimer though. He's always been a Packers
Is he
fan.
from Wisconsin?
No, not no. He's just always liked the Packers. And it was funny for his 50th birthday, our family took him to the field to what's the field called?
Lambo.
Lambo, yes. Oh my god, he would kill me. But yeah, so we got him like a cheese head, and he enjoyed an actual Packers game in the home field. So he's like the biggest fan ever. So we get a little excited for that.
I know all my fellow Minnesotans want to laugh at them, but mental illness is no joke. Everyone, people, don't make fun of the mentally handicapped for being Packer fans. So, but no, I always tell that joke, and it's like, oh, wow, he's not even from Wisconsin. So, but no, yeah, God, Aaron Rodgers coming back. I don't even want to get into all that crap. But anyway, getting back on your thing before I depress myself, because as much as I like to talk about sports, my state's history with sports is not anything to really brag about. So, it's just a never ending cycle of depression. But going into these shows, I mean, just the mindset that you have to have and just the fortitude and, all this stuff is just, so inspiring. But as you get closer and closer to show day, I mean, how are you dealing with this whole prep mentally? Because, I was gonna have a guest on today, and they totally forgot that they scheduled something else just because of prep brain. So, I mean, I know it's in the future for you. So, how are you slowly dealing with this sort of? I call it mental degeneration, but it's not fatal. Like it's not gonna keep continuing, but like you are gonna deal with that prep brain. So, how do you deal with that, knowing that like slowly, like, hey, it's gonna be an interesting next couple of 8 weeks.
Yeah. So I go hard in prep. I'm a balls to the wall, kind of 100 miles an hour type person. So mentally, I know that no matter what my coach tells me I need to be doing, I'm gonna get it done. So as far as kind of letting myself like give up or ease off, I don't think that's in the cards. It's just not my type of personality. Naturally, if injury or illness comes up, then we'll deal with it as it comes. Um, but as far as kind of my mindset is going, this is a prep of a lifetime. Not every competitor gets to step on the Olympia stage, and I feel like I'm one of the luckiest athletes to be able to prep for this show. So I'm just keeping the essence and the mindset that I get to wake up. It's a blessing that I'm even getting on that stage, in 8 weeks. So it's really just embracing it and enjoying the process because I know one day in my lifetime I won't be doing this, so it's really just is making the most out of every day, and not letting myself, become a brat, or say, "Woe is me," because this is a choice.
You could be like the 73-year-old that I had on that's still doing it. Who knows? Who knows? You could be one of those long haulers. But how are you dealing with any, just not like anxiety, but nerves going into it? Because like, yeah, stepping on the stage for the Olympia, that is not it doesn't get any bigger in this sport. I mean, that's the World Series for baseball. It's Super Bowl for football. I mean, are you feeling any nerves at all, or are you still kind of like pinching yourself? Where are you at in that phase of being like, oh my god, I'm actually going to get to step on that stage?
So I'm currently at this stage where it's becoming like reality. I think up until this point, it was kind of surreal, and I would say it and I talk about it, but I don't think it really hit me until this past weekend. Brooke Walker ended up winning her show. And the fact that she is such an inspiration and a motivation to me in the sport, she was someone that I looked up next to like a Daniel and Bailey. So for me to actually get the chance to step on the same stage as her, I think it really hit this weekend. That I was like, holy crap, this is real, and to be able to participate in that weekend that pretty much everyone in the industry looks at, and hopefully, travels to and gets to experience, and just to be a part of that weekend, I think it's starting to hit me in that essence that like, hey, I could walk down the street and see like Jay Cutler. I think it's starting to be like, holy crap, this is going to be the weekend of a lifetime, and it's really getting me excited. So it's scary and I'm nervous, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't. But more so just feeling excited and blessed, and really trying to be my best that weekend. And that's all I can control.
So you got Jay Cutler for males, but is there one female athlete that you're looking for most to maybe be on stage with or just seeing at the Olympia?
Oh yeah, all of them. Being a fan and wanting to do well in the sport, I've looked up to these women, since I started. So to be on stage with, the biggest names in the industry, it's unreal. And it's a little daunting and a little scary. But I earned it, and I will go and bring the best that I can, and see kind of where I stack up against these friggin' top level athletes that have ruled the industry these past years.
Oh, I will say I'm looking forward to Andrea Shaw just because I had her on, and good God, she took up the whole damn screen. Where I was like, okay, we need to find a bigger camera for you because that is just absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, 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 it's gonna be interesting, I think, because it's yeah, just with this whole year with everything that's been going on, just to see what the final Olympia is gonna be like is, it's really amazing. And
I'm really excited to see how women's bodybuilding keeps progressing. I think this past year has been so exciting just to see more and more women's bodybuilders getting out there and getting, stepping on stage and really making it super competitive this year. I think it's been the most impressive that the division has been. And it's really just exciting to see women being more so just, talked about in the sport.
if you keep at the pace that you're at right now, like if you grow as much as you did this last year, and the year, would being in the bodybuilding category ever be a possibility for you, or you just want to stay in physique?
Yeah, I would say it's not a definite no. So that card is always on the table for me. But I think I want to be prepared for it in order to stand next to some of those women. I think I want to feel as confident as I possibly could. So I don't think I would switch over until I feel ready to. Or so like judges are giving me that feedback to switch over, then I definitely would take the shot. But I think size-wise, it would take a really hefty off season or 3 or 4 of them to really get the size and the maturity that some of the.
It's all fine and dandy until you see that Andrea Shaw has arms the size of your head, basically, and then you're like, okay, I might need to, change things up a little bit and just, head back to the drawing board because so many people just don't understand that jump from physique to bodybuilding. I mean,
Is a
that is,
powerhouse.
like 20 to 30 pounds of muscle at
Yeah,
least,
and the crazy thing is I haven't seen her in person yet. So, my idea of her is all from video and pictures, and I can only imagine what she looks like in person.
Yeah. Well, I will say that one of the most shocking things for me is because, like I said, I'm 6'3", so meeting some of these bodybuilders, I'm just like, oh my god, you're short, and just stuff like that I just didn't realize. And then I was like, yeah, they're just really tight and compact. So that's another thing too. But I mean, yeah, just this, and I mean, how do you feel that you've been dealing with people in the physique community? Because, like I've talked about with multiple people on this podcast, I mean, this is a sport, especially the women's side of it, where I mean, everyone seems to be friendly with each other. Everyone really supports each other. How important is that camaraderie and that friendship to you? Because that can be, life changing for so many people when it comes to just wanting to continue in the sport, is just that feedback that you get and that positivity that other people give each other.
Yeah, I think in the sport, there is a really good like camaraderie kind of sense in the air, and people are very supportive. As far as social media does go, some people are more prominent, some are not so. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm present, I'm on social media, but I would say I'm not the best like texter or messenger in the world. But I have created some connections with competitors that I haven't met in real life via social media. So I would say it's good in that essence that I have been able to meet people that live really similar lifestyles to mine. So we just become friends really easily. And I've been, lucky and fortunate enough to meet some of them in person in real life at shows. So that's kind of a cool area of sport that as you compete more so and more and do more shows, you do get to meet, these people that you connect with via a screen. So you do get to see them in real life, and that's always a really cool experience.
Yep, absolutely. And a few questions that I have left on here is, I mean, when you're dealing with a lot of people in the public, I mean, especially as a personal trainer and whatnot, what do you think is one area that the general public doesn't understand about bodybuilding, or one myth that they believe about the sport that, I mean, one thing that maybe, or I should say one thing that they don't really understand about the sport, in your opinion?
Um, I would say how lonely it can be. Um, a lot of the times you are doing things yourself. You're getting up, you're doing your cardio, you're in your headphones, you come home, you cook your food, you eat, you train by yourself. Like some competitors are lucky enough to have a training partner or a roommate or a significant other that they are doing this with. But for a lot of the competitors out there, it's a lot of alone time in your own head, in your own headspace, and that's why I focus so much on mindset and the mental strength, because it can eat you up if you're not strong enough for it. So I think that essence of the sport is why I put so much emphasis on it.
It's just like Ronnie Coleman used to say, I mean, everyone wants to be look like a bodybuilder, but they don't want to put in the. I mean, people just don't understand those late nights working out or just working out even when you might not feel the best, and just they just don't get that as the end result. They just look at the end result. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. And people don't understand. You're not going to be going out and getting wasted on weekends most of the time if you're a body. But I mean, you're not gonna live that sort of life. And if you do, you have the best genetics on the planet. And give me some of those. But yeah, it's not gonna happen. But I'm not going to say if, because it's going to be when we talk to you next. Where would you like to be at in probably a year? Where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? What are some goals that you'd like to have? And, just overall, where would you like to be at in your life when we talk to you next?
Yeah, so I definitely want to see how the season goes. You know, my coach and I have talked about kind of the plans for the future, and it's kind of up in the air. So we're gonna kind of regroup and see where we are after the Olympia, mentally, physically, emotionally, just seeing what my body can handle, because prep does take a toll, and we want our bodies to respond properly. So we're gonna kind of see where I'm at. If I feel good, we're gonna push forward, try to do a show or two, leading into next year, but past that potential plan, we really haven't talked about it. So I don't know how or what this next year has in store for me. But I will say that I am excited to improve, and whether that be on the stage or off the stage. I actually just had this conversation with one of my teammates, being excited about off season. It shouldn't be one of those things where you're like, oh crap, like the fun time's over. Because I am finding that I almost get more excited for the off seasons because I know that's where I'm really going to change and shift my physique is in those periods of off training or off season. So I don't know. If next year I compete, I'm excited for that. If next year we decide to take off and grow and see where will fit into the sport, I think it just really depends on how this year goes and what kind of feedback I get from the judges.
Absolutely. I mean, at least they're having the Olympia before Halloween, because I mean that would just be torture. If they had to have it, after Halloween. It's like, come on now, they can't have candy or anything like that. But yeah. Lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Of course. So obviously my coach, Derek Natcher with Bob Performance Training. I've been with him for several years now. He has a wonderful staff of coaches behind him. They do wonderful things, lifestyle or competitors. I always kind of talk them up and hype them up. They are some of the best people as well as coaches that I know in the industry. Also, my suit designer, Becca Biddle with BP Custom Suits. I will be wearing a custom design from her this year on the Olympia stage, which I'm so excited for. But she is fantastic. She takes care of every athlete that she designs for. She's just a wonderful human being, and I would love to give her a shout out, as well as Adam Blumen with Alliance Athletics. He does body tissue work here in Pittsburgh. He's helped out pretty much every bodybuilder in Pittsburgh. He's probably the best and knows his stuff, not only with body tissue work, but also with training. So he can give you feedback on kind of what you're doing in the gym to hopefully keep you from getting injured. So he is awesome. If you're in Pittsburgh and you need body work done, reach out to him. He'd be more than happy to help you. Other than that, just my friends and family, the people that are in my close circle, inner circle, that are believing in me and pushing me, and hopefully seeing myself create the best possible version of myself come October. So
And I love that you brought up, that massage and that therapy, because I have never had any attraction to a man in my life, but possibly when I got my first massage and just how good that made me feel, I was like, okay, I might marry, just because it was how often do you do it, and how do you intend, because yeah, that is one thing that, I mean, there's a handful of better feelings that I probably experienced in my life than after getting a nice massage after, like maybe just a hard day.
yeah, it's definitely important, especially if you're training as hard as you possibly can. You do get bumps and bruises here and there, injuries, things that pop up. So he's always awesome to have on hand if you do have any major issues, or just routine work. If you're not competing, or you're deep in off season and you're still having issues. He works on both type of athletes, in and off season, and it's just great to kind of have him at my access, to kind of, in cases of emergencies or things aren't feeling right when I'm training. I know I can and get a session in with him and be feeling better, within a week.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, you guys, we cannot thank Emily enough for coming back on and, sharing her story. And obviously, we think that she's going to do great. And is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
That's it. I just want to say thank you to all the fans out there that really do support the bodybuilding community, and all the athletes and coaches out there that do, represent the sport well. I think we are really creating something special here in this new era of bodybuilding.
Yeah. Especially now that, yeah, especially with technology now, finally, I think catching up to what it could be with the sport too, where people can actually see. I mean, like, I couldn't imagine what the sport would be like, back in the 80s and 90s when literally you would just had to see how people would show up to a show and you wouldn't know like what anything is. So I really do appreciate that. And again, you guys go and give her a follow on her Instagram. I'll leave a link down there. And, again, buyer beware. You will get inspired, get it. Stop eating those Twinkies and get off the damn couch, get some exercise in. But again, Emily, thank you so much for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Well, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.